Okay, this is take 2 of me trying to explain what happened with the podcast. First take, some delivery man showed up and my dog started barking. Thank you, Jeffrey Bezos, for ruining my YouTube video. Now my dog's sneezing. Anyways, so I just kind of wanted to update everyone on the situation with the podcast because it's been about 4 months since I posted any podcast content, and a lot of people in my real life were keeping up with it and were asking me about it. And whenever they asked me, I just felt so like ashamed and upset that I decided I might as well just make a YouTube video so I can just point people in that direction. I'll probably either delete or unlist this video in about a month, so look forward to that. And because I mostly wanted to actually post videos on YouTube again, but I'll get into all that. And honestly, I wish I had more of an interesting story to tell you guys, but honestly, I just kind of got burnt out and depressed. As you guys know, I've stopped posting podcast videos about early April. That was towards the end of my semester, which end of the semester means like tests and essays and projects and all that. So I was burnt out of school, and then on top of that, I was burnt out from just being an adult, like grocery shopping and cooking and cleaning. Like normally I like those things, but on top of just all this fucking stuff and the fact that I'm a full-time student and part-time worker was just a lot. And my hobbies definitely suffered as a result, including the podcast. So I got to a point where I was so burnt out that I didn't want to leave my bed. And any free time I got during the day was spent in my bed on my phone, just exhausted. And so basically, my plan, I announced this on Twitter, was to take a hiatus, a brief hiatus, move back with my parents, and then maybe I'd pick up the podcast again when I don't have to worry about being an adult or a student for a little while. But that didn't end up working out. And without getting too much into it, my summer mentally has been kind of a rough mess. There's no other way to get around it. It's just been a mess. And so um I've just had to deal with it. Right now, like summer, I'm not thriving. I'm just kind of surviving right now and waiting until I'm back. Hopefully I don't get burnt out this time. So um so I just have had no motivation to start up the podcast back again. I stopped it and then I was like, I don't want to start it up back again. And which sucks because I kind of like tailor made the actual process of making the podcast so I wouldn't get burnt out. It was minimal editing. I have OBS Studio, so I would just sit down and record and then post on YouTube. And OBS Studio is kind of nice because you can kind of just like edit as you go. Like even before you start recording, you can like edit. If you have it, you know what I mean. But I like tailor made this podcast so I wouldn't get burnout. And then I did get burnout. And it's like, it just is another thing to add on my list of abandoned projects. And that sucks, but I'm kind of over it. Like, I'm kind of just like, it's how it is. Sometimes projects don't stick and you don't see it out to the end. And my podcast didn't have an end in sight. And it didn't give me a lot of reward. Like, I was putting on much more effort than I got rewarded for. So yeah, it just caused me more like sadness than happiness, which what it was intended to do was to bring me happiness. And for a while it did. For 6 months, which is pretty impressive, it did bring me happiness, but after a while I decided it's just not worth it. And I know that's sad. That sounds incredibly sad, but that's just the reality of it. Maybe one day I can bring up the podcast again because I did have a lot of fun and I'm still very passionate about music. And I really enjoy, you know, music and listening to music. So maybe one day I'll bring it back, but not anytime soon. Maybe if I'm bored again. But yeah, I'm going to keep the podcast episodes up on my YouTube because, it did bring people a lot of joy, hopefully. And I don't want to get rid of that for anyone. If they still want to go back and relive that happiness and get that happiness back, they absolutely can. But in the meantime, I don't think I'm going to be posting podcast episodes on my YouTube because ironically, editing's my favorite part of YouTube. Um, and I basically tailor made it so I could do the least amount of editing as possible with the podcast. So yeah, that's just where it's been at right now. Like mentally, I'm in kind of a rocky place, just in general. So hopefully, I can move on from all that and have a good time. But for now, that's what happened with the podcast. And like I said, I'm probably gonna unlist or delete this video in a little while. So just to keep you guys updated, because it was racking me with so much guilt that I decided I should probably, absolve myself of guilt and grief. So that's what's going on. I hope you guys have a lovely day, and hopefully I can post again on YouTube, maybe something kind of fun like meme edits. So, auf Wiedersehen.